I often find it's just as important to be a good listener as it is talker. And that's what I hope to do during this next conversation with a friend of mine, Demonte Alexander. He's the Director of External Affairs and Special Projects for Bexar Facts. And you might know that Bexar Facts and KSAT have a partnership with a poll that we put out quarterly. It's the, I want to get this right, Bexar Facts-KSAT-Rivard Report poll. Demonte joins us now live. Demonte, thank you for joining us. And we want to talk about race and police brutality and inequality and justice and some of the things we've seen play out on the streets. But part of that is also included in the next poll, correct?
Yes, Steve, you're right. I think when we first started, we were really trying to get a pulse of who we are as an organization. But as we saw more interest in the data and the information that we were putting out, we felt like we needed to be more nimble in responding to the opinions, attitudes, and trends that are happening across the county. And so we're now putting out more frequent polls. As you can see, we responded to COVID-19 when it first kicked off in March. And now we want to be able to still track coronavirus and the impacts it has, but we also want to be able to respond to the opinions of how people are feeling right now around police accountability, racial injustices, and those types of things.
Because there are so many different issues facing all of us right now. Demonte, you have a lot of experience working in local government on many different levels within different city council districts, in City Hall. So how big of a challenge do you think it might be to repeal those protections that are in place, often provided by a collective bargaining agreement that essentially allow bad officers to be brought back onto the force after they've been reprimanded or fired? Do you see that as a real possibility to make change in that area?
Well, I mean, obviously, it's going to take more than one elected official to do that. And I know the city right now is trying to find the political will, if you will, to really trying to figure out how that works. Obviously, you saw today where the chief and the mayor is really trying to push for reform, but some pieces of that has to be kicked to the state, and so that takes some collaboration with our state representatives, and maybe even possibly with the governor. It just depends. But yeah, it's going to take a collaborative approach, and it's definitely difficult when you have to try to reach across the aisle, but you may not have a warm or fuzzy relationship with that individual. So it's definitely difficult and it's delicate. But I think if they're able to find common ground, we can definitely see some real change.
Are you optimistic that something's going to happen out of this?
It depends on the perspective. I don't think, I'm always optimistic about these types of outcomes, but I don't think our young voices and the people on the ground every day, which, I would be remiss if I didn't just thank and just recognize the people on the ground that are doing this work every single day. But I don't think those young voices are going to allow anything other than change. As you can see, I think we're in our record number. I don't think we've seen protests go on this long from far as I can remember. So I don't think the young voices in those organizations are going to allow our elected officials and the government to do anything other than push for reform.
You talk about perspective. Let's talk about your personal perspective. As a member of San Antonio's Black community and someone with such knowledge of the inner workings of how the city operates, how local government operates, what do you make of the protests that we have seen so far in this community and the reaction from this community?
And, that's something I'm still struggling with, Myra. I think a lot of people, I've received a lot of texts from friends, and I think a lot of people just assume that Black people have it figured out, and we don't. It's traumatic. I've changed. Even I used to run in my neighborhood, which I live in a mixed neighborhood, Black, white, Hispanic. I don't run in my neighborhood anymore after a Monaubrey, right? I don't go get gas after 10 o'clock at night. It's just I've had to change, and I'm sure many others have too. Just the way what seems like something so radical to certain people, or this is brand new. This is just Friday for us, right? This is something we deal with every day, and we have to be thoughtful about if I wear a hoodie versus if I put on my glasses, or if I take my glasses off. How would I be perceived? And that's just something that we have to deal with as African Americans.
And I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the fact that you are a veteran. You served 10 years in the U.S. Army. You received awards of valor for the way you performed in combat in Baghdad and Iraq. It's hard for me to hear you talk about this in the country that we both love.
Yeah, and Steve, we can go from layer to layer to layer, and we can even talk about even just the coronavirus itself, right? When you look at the health disparities and the people who it affects the most, here we are again talking about Black folks and people of color, right? And so, I mean, we can go on and on about it, but definitely, it definitely hurts. It definitely kicks you in the wrong spot. Being someone who's been in theater and who's fought for this country. And to be able to witness what's happening today. I mean, just for example, I may not have had a lot. All of our experiences are different, but one thing's for sure: I can't watch what happened to George Floyd or what happened to Breonna Taylor and feel like that I don't carry that pain and that hurt as well. And so, though I didn't physically experience that, emotionally, it has its effect on me, and I'm sure many others. And I think that's why you're seeing so much tension and so much push for change. Is people were just fed up, and America has really, and I don't want to, when I say this is that we have not properly addressed a long history of racial terror in this country, and which treats Blackness as a proxy or a substitute, if you will, for criminality. And that's at the crux of what this is all about, right? I can't get someone to see past, like, there's been experiences where someone will call me by a different name of another Black colleague, and it'll do it over and over and over. And it helps. It was like, well, is somebody not taking the time to look past the color of my skin to really get to know who I am and call me by my name? And so I'm sure there's other people that happens more often than not, but that's just one of many, like, microaggressions macro and microaggressions that we get on a daily basis, right? Oh, he's an articulate black guy, or wow, let me touch your hair, and those types of things. And so, we're just taking it from all ends, not saying that we're the only ones, but right now, it's really tough. Being a Black man, a Black woman in America, it's really tough.
I just want to say thank you so much, not only for your expertise, but sharing such a personal element that we can all learn from. That's how we kicked off this conversation, that listening is learning right now. So thank you so much for sharing all those details.
Yeah, and Demonte, I know that you would be mad at me if I didn't share the fact that poll is in the field right now. We will have results coming up, of course, on KSAT, thebearfacts.org, as well as the Rivard Report. And we're going to continue this conversation coming up tonight on the Night Beat at 10. Demonte, I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Steve. Thank you, Myra. Thank you, Steve.
We'll be right back.